Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to Peterisms. Okay, like I've said in the last couple of videos, this month I am trying to tell stories, read old blog posts that are, to me, the most profound or the most meaningful, so that I don't ever forget them, to kind of build a foundation for this channel, so to speak, of like the most important stories that have ever happened to me and lessons that I don't want to forget. And today I'm going to talk about the shootings at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando a little bit over a year ago, last summer. I was scrolling through posts that I had written on the Huffington Post, and I had completely forgotten that I wrote this post called The Last Dance. And I read it, and at the very end of it, it says, and I don't ever want to forget this, or I hope I remember this forever. And, you know, I had forgotten that I even wrote it. And I think that's the horrible thing sometimes with tragedies is, you know, when they happen to us, like at that moment, we have this very personal response to it. But then over time, we kind of forget about it, right? And I think a lot of times it's survivor's guilt, especially like when we have a family member that's passed away. It's like we don't want to forget that person. And when we start not remembering them every day, it's like we feel horrible about it. You know what I mean? And it's ridiculous that we feel that way. That our loved ones wouldn't want us to think that way. And, you know, when it comes to tragedies in my life that have really stood out, you know, the Pulse shooting, 9/11, Columbine, you know, on and on and on, these things that have happened to me. It's interesting that when I look back on my life and I look back on those events, and I remember my mom saying this to me about the John F. Kennedy shooting. She said, you, as you get older, will remember exactly where you were at those moments. And, you know, when I look back on my life is, you know, postmarked by, let's say, events that happened. It's not like ages like 30, 35, 25. It's not, you know. I don't really remember what it was like to be 21 or 32 or any of those things. But what I do remember is, you know, I remember very much getting sober and what that year was like for me. You know, I remember living in my apartment for the first time. I remember getting my master's degree and what that was like, and my first year working in a treatment program. And I can remember the year that I was, you know, an assessment counselor driving to all over the Department of Corrections in the state of Indiana and listening to Patricia Cornwell tapes of her books and going into these jails and detention centers. And that was one of my favorite jobs I ever had. And, you know, I can remember each of my relationships that I've had, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm a person that believes that in, you know, life, we should look back on those relationships and cherish the good times and the bad, because, you know, what we take from all of our relationships propels us to be the next best person in the next relationship. And had I not gone through the things that I went through in my two previous relationships, I wouldn't be the husband that I am today to my husband, Alex. But I look at life and I look at these events that have occurred, you know? And one of the things that I used to love to do when I was a counselor was have people do timelines from the earliest memory on. Because I think it's interesting when we write down timelines of what we remember at 2, 5, 10, 30, you know, whatever, that those things that stand out to you are the ones that have the most profound, pivotal effect on our lives. And, so I think it's interesting sometimes that we forget those things that happened to us. And at the time that the Pulse shootings occurred, I was greatly affected afterwards. You'll hear about it in just a second. But like, I have to be honest, as time went on, I've kind of forgotten about it, you know? And I think it's the same with any of these events that happen. And yesterday I talked about Leila Alcorn, and she said, fix society, please. And, you know, I said in there that every time I smile at a stranger, I hope I remember Leila. And the honest to God's truth is that I don't remember Leila on a daily basis. And so it's important for me to make these videos. It's important for me to talk about these issues that have happened so that, you know, we never forget. And, you know, years ago, I was very committed to the work of teen suicides related to bullying. And I was looking up some of these names the other day that, you know, I could just recite off the top of my head. And now they don't hold as much weight. You know, like when I was looking through them, I was like, did I talk about, you know, do I remember that story? And that's sad, you know, and I don't want to ever forget those things. Like, I don't think we should ever, any of us, forget those things. So, because I said in my post that I don't ever want to forget this and I want to remember it, I'm going to read it for you guys today. And I just want to have it on my channel so that I can go back and look at it anytime I want and remember, you know, how thankful I am for my life. Because it was a moment that I kissed my husband a little bit harder and loved my friends and family a little bit closer, if that makes any sense. So it is called The Last Dance, and it was published on June 15th of 2016. Tonight I arrived home late and pulled my car into the driveway. After turning off the engine, I heard the sound of the roaring fan from the upstairs window, informing me that my husband Alex was fast asleep with our pups. I sat for a moment and scrolled through my Facebook feed, a soft wind whispering to me through the windows of my car. Noticing that a video of Anderson Cooper in Orlando was trending, I hit the play button and sat back in my seat. As he read the names of the 49 people who lost their lives in the tragedy at Pulse nightclub, I found myself, for the first time since the incident, sobbing. When the video ended, it scrolled into the next clip, which is Hamilton creator Lin-Manuel Miranda's moving sonnet, Love is Love. I literally could not stop crying. Tears flooded my cheeks, and I sat for at least a half an hour, watching each video several times. I dried my eyes, locked my car, and walked inside. Although I haven't written anything in months, I felt compelled to write how I was feeling. Over the last 24 hours, as news of the tragedy came to me via texts and phone calls, I have felt absolutely numb. As I watched the countless hours of news footage, I found myself sad, but not deeply moved emotionally. Maybe I had become so conditioned to the violence in our times and the hatred towards the LGBT community that I honestly wasn't surprised. That should have made me sad. So why now, after watching these videos, did I find myself sobbing uncontrollably to the point where I had to go to the bathroom so I wouldn't wake up my husband? What had occurred in those 30 minutes in the car that I hadn't witnessed or felt before? I saw the people behind the story. As I listened to the names and the stories about each of these people, I heard about their work ethic, their families, and their partners. In many of their names, I heard the proud heritage of our Hispanic brothers and sisters, and I too felt proud to be married to someone of the same heritage. I sobbed even harder when I heard of boyfriends who died together, imagining myself and my husband in the same situation. In the stories, I heard my story, a desire to have fun in a safe environment and for once be able to be myself. I imagined myself in that bar as I have found myself many nights in a gay bar. It could have been me. It could have been any of us. I cannot for 1 second imagine what they felt as they were slaughtered, but I am sure it was the deepest sort of fear we have never felt in the depths of our souls. Why should any human being ever have to endure such agony? Is slaughter too loud or violent of a word? Absolutely not. It is the truth. As a proud gay man and a proud member of the LGBT community, I am tired of being used as a political debate and as a discussion piece on such issues as gun control, terrorism, and religious rights. They were people, not political issues for debate. And I am a person. I am more important than your right to carry a gun. I am more important than your right to religious freedom. I am more important than your convictions. I am a human, and I am important. You are important. If you don't agree with these statements, you've made yourself alarmingly clear. You are a dangerous person. Why is it we've become so conditioned to violence and hatred? Why is it we accept it instead of seeking compassion? I hate that I live in a world where our presidential candidates are more concerned with what speech to give in light of a tragedy than to stand behind a microphone and spill out their hearts and souls as human beings should. Why would I want anyone other than that making a decision for my life? I hate that I live in a world where everyone has an opinion unedited on social media that has the ability to move me to tears more than tragedy itself. What happened to the times when people were considerate enough to shut their mouths and keep opinions to themselves out of fear of hurting someone's feelings? When did we stop caring about people's feelings, about their lives? What has happened to us? We must remember them. We must remember their stories and stand up proud in their wake. We must remember that we all have a story and we are all important in this cycle of life. 49 people dead. I hope I never forget how very, very important they were to this world. I sobbed thinking about the families and friends left behind, the children unborn and the art never created, the marriages never officiated and the first kisses never had, the friends never made and the arguments never mended, the movies never seen and the books never read, the meals never eaten and the jokes never told, the careers never started and the classes never attended, the song that had just begun and the dance that will last forever. May we find peace in all of our hearts. I love you guys and I will see you tomorrow.